This is To the Front. Tools for today's top agents.
Welcome back to episode number 27 of To the Front. Now, if you've been around for a while, you know that I close every episode pretty much the same way. And the way I close it is this. I say, go work and live and operate your agency for something bigger and longer lasting than money. You know, sometimes I'll refer to it as a ripple or leaving a legacy. And so today's episode is about that. And so if you've been following this podcast, whether you listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, by the way, shameless plug, go subscribe. 95% of our listeners don't subscribe, so please go do that. But if you've been following along for a while, you know this podcast is all about giving you tools to help your agency or your business go to the front, go to the top. Now, I'm a big believer that if you're going, how we define to the front or to the top needs to include what you're doing to leave a legacy, what you're doing to make the world a better place. Because if we all are honest, this world's a broken, tough place. But you know what? It doesn't have to stay that way. And there are organizations that are existing right now that have existed for a long time who make the world a better place, that literally take people that are captive and help them to find freedom. And so this episode is about taking your business, taking your agency, and using it in the direction of freedom. In fact, the title is that, Business in the Direction of Freedom, how everyday businesses can contribute, now listen to this, can contribute to ending modern day slavery. And today I've got an opportunity for you that I want you to hone in, turn the volume up. You don't want to miss this. If you want your insurance agency, your business to make a dramatic impact, this is the episode for you, because the reality is that slavery is not in the past. Slavery is today, and we have a way that your business can engage that. And to talk about that, I want to bring on, man, not a stranger to me, a dear friend, Kevin Austin from the Set Free Movement. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good to be with you, Adam.
Hey, man. Listen, if Kevin and I go back a long way before I was a front runner guy or a podcast guy, I was a pastor. I've shared that quite a bit, loved every minute of it, but involved in the pastorate. I got involved for a few years in some nonprofit work, but specifically one of the most fulfilling ones was when I was working with Kevin and his team at Set Free Movement. And so we're going to talk about what Set Free Movement is here in just a second. But Set Free Movement literally is a ministry. It's an organization who want to be agents of hope and healing across the world, and specifically in the direction of freedom, understanding that not everybody is free like you and I. And so, Kevin, I'm excited to have you on the podcast. Let me, Set Free Movement's been around for 15 years. Kevin is the founder and director, speaks all over the nation, leads tons and tons of teams and businesses who in their area are helping end human trafficking. And so today we want to give you and tell you about, number one, the problem, why you should care about it as an insurance agent, and how you can decide not to roll over and ignore it, but to involve you and your team in the fight against it. So, Kevin, how'd I do in the introduction, buddy?
Hey, pretty good. Yeah, thanks, Adam. Good to be with you.
Hey, man, that's the goal. All right. So Kevin lives right outside of Seattle, rainy Seattle, but I think it's probably getting nice. Probably springtime and summertime are beautiful in Seattle, aren't they?
Yeah, they're gorgeous. We don't want anybody to know that, but yeah, it's beautiful here.
You're like, you stay on your side of the country. Don't come
flowers, 70 degrees, man. It's heaven right now.
Amazing. I was talking to somebody that lives near Seattle last week, and they said, man, everybody comes here and visits in the spring and fall and thinks this is just how it is all year long. And then they move here and they're miserable for like 6 or 7 months in the winter because it's rainy and gray.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Before we start, Kevin, tell our listeners a little bit more about you, how you started to work in sort of the freedom space, all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I was a missionary in Thailand for 7 years and lived very close to what's considered to be one of the largest sex tourism spots in the world. So I was teaching English as a second language with Thai young people. I was helping to pastor a Thai church. But then just right up the road from me was this just incredibly large system of prostitution and human trafficking. And when I moved there, I had no idea there was such a thing. And so about 25 years ago, when I was living in Thailand, I encountered human trafficking on this grand scale, and it broke me. It broke my heart. And it demanded a response, right?
Yeah.
My heart was broken, and I had to, and then my next, thing was, well, what am I going to do about this? Because I can't ignore this. So, making a very long story short, I returned back to the United States, and it was still nagging at me, and I realized that there were a lot of great organizations doing work internationally and also nationally, but there was nobody that was going to help me in my local community.
Yeah.
So I founded the Set Free Movement 15 years ago to answer the question of who's going to help me, whether I'm in a small rural community or a large city, to address this issue and all the orbiting issues. So we founded the Set Free Movement 15 years ago, helping anybody anywhere do what they do in the direction of freedom.
Yeah, and I've had on for a couple of years, I had a front row seat to that, watching all the amazing work that Set Free does, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I want to start with the root problem for our listeners, because we're probably got some listeners who said, you know what, human trafficking, slavery, man, that's only sex trafficking, and it's somewhere else out in the world. It's not in my little town. We believe those are myths. Can you tell us why people think that, why it's a myth, and maybe give us some either stats or anecdotes about why that's the reality is it's actually here.
Right. So when I first encountered human trafficking 25-ish years ago, there were estimated to be 27 million human trafficking victims in the world today. And today it's 50 million.
Wow.
So that number has grown. We understand it better now than we did 25 years ago. And human trafficking, statistically, the largest amount of money is made through sex trafficking, but the largest number of human trafficking victims are in labor trafficking.
Yeah.
So it's in virtually all of our commercial enterprises. So it's in the tomato industry and blueberries and automobiles and technology and restaurants and hospitalities. It's literally in our cupboards, our closets, our kitchens. It's across the street. It's around the corner. It's on the other side of the world. When I first started really looking into this, the early adopters were in two very rural locations in America. One was in Michigan in a rural area, and another one was in Illinois in a very rural area. And we asked the question, is human trafficking here in this small town of 7,000 people? Is this human trafficking here in Michigan with this, this very small kind of rural area? And as we examined and looked into it, we found human trafficking in those small rural areas. And it was driving by on the freeways. It was in the vulnerability of youth. So here's a statistic that I think might help people to wrap their brains around it. Among those involved in commercial sexual exploitation in the United States, so this is prostitution, stripping, and pornography, of men and women who are currently involved in those enterprises, at one time, 70% of those were in the foster care system. So let me just say that again. Of those involved in commercial sexual exploitation, prostitution, stripping, pornography, at one time, they were 70% of them were in the foster care system.
Wow.
So these are US citizens from broken families that are incredibly vulnerable. And so it's not just people in Thailand or Brazil or Hungary or wherever. It's also right here in the United States. And it
Wow.
is in small rural cities, and it is in big cities, and it's it's an issue of business. It's not just
Yeah.
about law and law enforcement and the breakdown of the family and all of that. It's a thriving business. And so we need business leaders to get in the game and provide a counter to this evil business. Let's counter the evil business
Yeah.
with righteous business. Let's get righteous business leaders involved in meeting the needs of these broken families, of serving the most vulnerable, and counteracting this evil that wants to prey on the vulnerable.
That's right. Because I think we could probably say that, so to speak, the front lines of the fight has probably been nonprofits, churches, individuals.
Right.
But, and again, there's some businesses, absolutely, that are engaging in the fight for freedom. But as a whole, I would have to assume that a lot of business owners are maybe in the bucket of just maybe ignorance. They're not blindly turning an eye to it or don't care. They just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know that, like you said, in my little town of 7,000, 10,000, 15,000, could this be happening? And you even simply said, if at one point 70% were involved in the foster care system that were being sexually exploited, whether it's through pornography or prostitution or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So the reality is, it's probably, insurance agents, as you're listening, it's probably going on in your town right now.
Well, I can guarantee it is, because I've been in probably 40 different countries, as well as almost every state in the union, in connecting with people who are trying to figure out what's going on in their communities. A little tiny town like Cattaraugus, New York, which is like got 900 people. They have human trafficking in their county, big time. And so you would not think that driving through this rural, beautiful setting, but it's there. And we need to look, we need to open our eyes, we need to acknowledge that it's there, and not get overwhelmed and say there's nothing we can't do, because the reality is there are things we all can do to protect the vulnerable, to build strong families, to help our neighborhoods thrive.
Yeah. And it's almost this thing of, if a problem exists, there's a piece of you that, whether it's morally obligated or you're communally obligated, to talk about it, to look at it, and to ask, what is my role in being a part of the solution? Now, I want to ask you about something too. You mentioned it's in our cupboards, it's in our wardrobes. Could you speak a little bit about that? In terms of how is slavery connected to what's in our cupboards and our wardrobes?
Yeah, well, it's literally in the cotton that we wear. It's in the shoes we wear. It's in, like I said before, it's, when we were first exploring this, we learned that there was forced labor in the blueberry fields of Michigan. I had blueberries for breakfast this morning. And so, we just have to ask the question, where do our goods come from? Where did this shirt come from? Is it ethically sourced? And so there's some work we need to do around that. We need to ask questions about, are my shoes ethically sourced? And we have a resource for that on our website. If your listeners want to go to our website, we've got a resource called Conscious Consumer Guide, and it just gives you some links of where to go to just kind of learn more about it. We have a lot of resources on our website. We've got a resource about how do you talk to your kids about human trafficking, about how do you keep your kids safe online. So just a plug for that. We've got resources that can help you as a grandparent, as a parent, talk to your kids, and then also keep your kids safe online, and then learn how to shop, ethically. And these are not quick things. It's not McDonald's activism.
Sure.
You can't just, like, I'm going to do these two things and feel good about myself, and then I'm going to move on. It really is a lifestyle shift. It's a values focus where we look at what are we doing with our money? What are we doing with our influence? Because our money and our influence can be good, used for good or for evil.
That's right.
And if we're unaware, it might be used for evil. Now, I don't want my money or my influence to be used for evil.
That's right.
So I have to do the hard work of examining my life. What am I doing? How am I living? What are my values? What am I buying? What am I driving through my consumerism? And it takes a little bit of work to figure it out, but we try to help you figure that out, with
That's
resources.
Right. And I remember, Kevin, when Taylor and I, Taylor's my wife, by the way, if you didn't know that, almost 20 years, Kevin.
Woo!
Crazy. I know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I remember when we joined your team, one of the first things that we looked at was we said, well, what can we do right away? And we looked at the stuff we were eating and putting on our bodies, right? And so we looked and found that the coffee that we were buying was not ethically sourced, right? It was probably the beans were harvested by child laborers. And so and then we started to look at some of the clothing, some of the stores that we were frequenting. And honestly, those were kind of the first steps of just saying, we're just going to live consciously. We're going to stop buying it because it's there. And we're going to say, wait, how did that product get there? And so it changed the coffee that we drink. It changed what chocolate bars we were consuming. It even said, hey, these set of stores we're going to stop going to, and we're going to now start to support these set of stores because we know how those things are made. And so as a business owner, if you're listening, if you're like, man, Adam, my heart's turned. I got trafficking right here. What can I do? I don't know. Probably one of the quickest ways to just, I would say, start being conscious is go to your break room. And like, what kind of coffee are you offering your team members?
Yeah.
I mean, that is so simple. And if something as simple as you changing the coffee to something that's fair trade or ethically sourced, and there's lots of coffee. You can go to any grocery store in America and you're going to find, and it's going to clearly mark something that's sort of fair trade certified, right? And I know there's some other terms that you're going to see. And then your team members ask, hey, why did we change the coffee? Boy, what an opportunity to tell your team, well, listen, I listened to this podcast and I'm finding that even coffee contributes to human trafficking. And so I want to, even if this is just a little act, if we can drive down the demand for products that are unethically sourced, what happens is that those producers can't produce as much because there's not the demand. So we as purchasers, before we don't have to go under underground stings or all these things that you might see in the movies. Just saying, as far as it is for me and my business, we're going to make sure that the things that we have in here are ethically sourced. Yeah.
I think that's a great starting point. We've got several partnerships with coffee companies, and you buy the coffee from Camino Island Coffee or Imprint Coffee Roasters in Sodus, New York, and a percentage of that money comes to us so that we can fight freedom. Yeah. And also you get the privilege of drinking the best coffee in the world. And, and so let's talk about business as a means for change. Can we do that?
Yeah. And that was actually where I was going to next.
Okay, so let's get into that. So Imprint Coffee Company came to us and said, we want to do more than sell excellent coffee. What can we do? And and we said, well, we can do this or this or this. And what they ended up doing was creating 3 different blends of coffee for us. There's the Set Free blend, the Freedom blend. There's the Freedom blend, the Wonders blend, and the Fostering Hope blend.
Yeah.
And so they're different blends of coffee. If you buy the Wonders blend, 25% of that goes to support our Wonders program in Africa, which is helping keep girls in school through a renewable, reusable menstrual health kit. So we're employing 6 women in sewing these kits. We've distributed year to date, so far, not year to date, but over the last 3 years, we've distributed 3,200 kits to girls, which is helping them stay in school. And so this is preventative work. And so you buy the Wonders blend, and we get a little bit of money, and you get to raise awareness about that program, or the Fostering Hope blend, which helps foster kids. And then this, in the Imprint Coffee Company, tells people this is what we're doing and this is why. So they're raising awareness with all their customers. So their customers now realize, oh my goodness, I didn't know human trafficking was an issue.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was an issue with foster care. I didn't know it was an issue with girls dropping out of school because they get their periods, and we can actually do something about that. So, that's one example. I've got another example of a real estate agent in Michigan who sells about 100 homes a year. And when he sells a home, he gives them a packet that says, here's where the parks are, here's where you register to vote. And by the way, there's human trafficking in our county. Here's what we want you to know.
Yeah.
Here's the toll-free number. Here's some information. Here's a link where you can find out more. Here's how you can get some resources for your kids. So they're raising awareness with 100 homes, 100 new families a year moving into their community.
Huge.
They're giving them the tools. So, I think a practical application for some of your listeners is, you're an insurance agent in your community. That means you're a leader in your community. You have influence with all of your clients. Why not give them some resources to help them to protect their kids, give them resources to help them to understand better what's going on in their community, and raise awareness, and also raise some money around, to give, so that we can address this issue better than we are.
Yeah. That's something. Here's what you just presented, is that if you are an insurance agent, I love what you said, you're a leader in your community. And if you, as an insurance agent, what is your job? Your job is to protect and insure lives. That's what you do as an agent. You are protecting and making sure that they are protected. Well, what if, as a part of your insurance presentation, as a part of your welcome kit, you included information about what's happening in terms of human trafficking in that town, and ways that you can talk to your kids about it, ways that you can look, things that you can look for in terms of what your kids are looking at on the internet. And a lot of those resources actually probably can be ascertained through partnership with the Set Free movement, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Hey, Kevin, I want to throw a phrase out to you, because this is a good point about this, because the last two examples of businesses that sort of use what they were already doing to spread awareness, and then potentially to raise money to help organizations like the Set Free movement do more of what they do. You used to use a phrase a lot, and I want to say it. You would often say, whatever you do it in the direction of freedom. That's always stuck. That's always stuck with me. Is that what you're talking about when you say do it in the direction of freedom? Like, hey, you don't have to go and start a whole bunch of new things. Just look at what you're already doing and figure out how you do freedom. Is that what that's all about?
That's right. Yeah. So we can get really overwhelmed, and we can think, okay, 50 million victims of human trafficking, all these broken families, like, what can I do? Well, you don't have to become a lawyer. You don't have to start a nonprofit. If you're a teacher, talk about this in your classroom. If you're a pastor, preach this in your church. If you're a musician, write songs about freedom to raise awareness. And business leaders, I think that, honestly, I think that business could be the leading arm of, the leading catalyst for creating change around this issue. Because as a business leader, you've got influence with hundreds, if not thousands, of people in your community. You're connecting with them relationally. You know what's going on in your community. You're part of the different organizations in your community that are wanting, your community to be healthy and to thrive. And so when you stand up and you say, for example, my business believes that people should be free and people
Mhm.
should have hope and healing, and we're against human trafficking, we're against forced labor, we're against things that demean, we're against injustice, and so therefore we are going to start resourcing our clients, and we're going to give a percentage of our income, we're going to give a percentage of our profit to an organization. And it doesn't have to be the Set Free Movement, but of course I'd like for it to be the Set Free
Yeah,
Movement.
sure.
Find another organization in your community and say, we're going to give 5% of our profits this year to this organization because we want to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
We want to make a difference. And so for that, domestic violence shelter that's barely hanging on, for you to say, like, we're against domestic violence. So I'm going to put skin in the game. We're against human trafficking. We're going to give to Set Free. Like, that's going to have influence. And then just you're raising awareness with all your clients is going to raise the level of awareness in your community, so that eventually your community becomes a zero tolerance community. So you've got
Yeah.
so people have zero tolerance for this. They're
Yeah.
just they're done with it. There's no more of this.
Yeah.
And I actually believe that can happen, because I've seen what some of our teams have done in their communities, where they've raised that level of awareness to a point where really significant things are happening. Significant changes in law enforcement, significant changes in the way victims are helped and the vulnerable are protected. I've seen this change happen in different cases, but it can happen more frequently and on a much larger level than it is currently. But we need business leaders to have skin in the game.
That's right. Because let's be honest, that's where the money's at. Money and resources are with businesses. And if I'm a believer, if you've been given much through business, much is going to be required of you. It should be asked of you, right? Who was it, Kevin, that said, I've been trying to rack my brain, who said that the only thing that's needed for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing? Who said that? Was that
Oh
like
gosh, I don't
was
remember
that like
who
a
that
Winston
was,
Churchill or something? Or
but
I
that's
don't know.
right. That's
Somebody
right.
said that I'm not smart to say it. It was somebody, and that's actually a really famous saying. I forget who said it, but the only thing that's necessary for evil to prevail is for good men, women, organizations, and businesses to do nothing.
Great.
And this podcast is not about a guilt trip, because I don't believe any good
No.
movement starts with a guilt trip.
Right.
But there is a call to action to say, boy, we have to do something.
Right.
And it's probably like this: a little action over a long period of time goes a long way. It
That's right.
doesn't it doesn't need to be massive splashes with community events. Not that it couldn't be, because the Set Free movement
Right.
does that. But to start, it can just be it could just be consistent little action done over a long period of time, whether it's through
Right.
buying choices, through awareness, through workshops. In fact, I remember one of the best things that we got to do with Set Free Movement is we were in a little town called Winchester, and I brought Set Free Movement in to come and do a series of talks at churches and coffee houses. It was fantastic. We had a couple little acoustic artists that played. It was at a coffee shop, and then we had a staff member. I think it was one of your speakers, Kevin, on your team. I think it was Katie came in
Mhm.
for that event, and did a couple of days of speaking to different groups. One was at a coffee shop, one was at a church, about how small towns can get involved in the fight for freedom, right?
That's right.
So
That's
there's a lot of things that you can do. But number one thing is to start. Obviously sometimes the
right.
hardest thing in a new journey is the first step. And
Right.
so what I'm hearing you say is that one of the principles of the Set Free movement across the United States is to start. You don't necessarily need to add a new program or new endeavor. Just think about
Right.
what you're already doing
Right. Right.
do that in the direction of freedom, and look at the resources and finances you have and say, could we carve out a piece of that for
Right.
for, for an organization like Set Free Movement, who is actively on the front lines doing this?
Right. It's like a journey. You when I go hiking in the mountains, I don't get to the summit in 5 minutes. I put one foot after another after another. It takes these small but steady footsteps that get me up into the alpine meadows. And so you don't know what to do, but you just start with what you know.
Yeah.
You Google something, you read, and I think this is one of the offers that I want to make to people that are listening and watching this, is that the Set Free movement was created to help you to apply what I'm saying in your local community. So we actually create community teams. We connect with churches. We're happy to connect with you as a business leader.
Yeah.
You listening to this, you might think, well, what can I do? Well, just write to me. Write to me. I am happy to write back with you and get on a Zoom call with you. It's actually .org, Adam.
Oh,
It's
.org. I'm going to change that right now.
my email address is different from the website address. It's kevin@setfreemovement.org. Write to me. I'm happy to get on a Zoom call with you. If you're in Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, California, that's where we currently have teams. I'll come visit you. Next time I'm in that area, I'll contact you. I'll come down. I'll spend time with you. I've got leaders in Michigan and New York and Illinois that will spend time with you. You just need to reach out to us, and we can help to get you resources. We can have conversations with you, because I know sometimes this can be overwhelming, and we are here to help you to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Florida next week. Hey, Alabama. I'm going to be in Alabama next week. Write to me. If you're in Alabama and you're in the Montgomery area, write to me. I'll come visit you next week. So
Next week. That could happen next week.
Yeah, next week. I'll come visit you if you're in Montgomery, Alabama. You just write to me. If you're in Indianapolis, Indiana, the following week, I'll come visit you. Write to me.
Wow.
Let's get together. Let's work on this together.
Yeah, and I can't say that enough. One of the great things I've loved about Set Free Movement is that relational side. Is to say, Set Free Movement is an organization that says, all right, here's what you need to do. Here's the 1, 2, 3 things. You do those things. No, what that team does is, whether through Zoom or if you guys can coordinate it in person, Set Free Movement can come in, gather some agents together, or even one-on-one, and say, okay, let's talk about your community.
Yeah.
And then we can help you think about a strategy in your community, because the fight for freedom is not a one-size-fits-all thing. What your community is experiencing might be very different than what somebody on the West Coast, North and South. That's why the relationship is so important. That's why we're not saying, hey, go to setfreemovement.org and here's their 1, 2, 3 program, go do it, and you're going to solve freedom in your area. That's not how it works.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, for you listening to this, absolutely, if you want to give financially to the Set Free Movement, you can. We would welcome that. But we actually we actually value more partnership than support.
Mm-hmm.
We would actually, I would rather have a conversation with you and help you figure out how do you have impact in your community than just simply receiving a check from you.
Yeah.
And rather than you just downloading resources and distributing them, we would love to talk with you and have a relationship with you so that we can create some leverage in your community, so that we can see human trafficking decreasing, injustices decreasing, vulnerable people better protected, and we can do that. We have 15 years of experience seeing that change can happen. Hope and healing can come to communities. So let's connect.
Yeah. Think about what that would do in your community for your business, right? Not that you're going to do this for selfish gains, but let's be honest. If if your community, your city, your town knows that you're the agency that's here for something bigger than an insurance policy,
That's
if,
right.
if that you care more about whole and healed families than making sure everybody's got a life policy, here's what I can almost guarantee you is that not only will your community be a better place, but your books will be better. You will be the trusted provider. Because to be honest with you, everybody sells insurance. It's a commodity, right? Now I know there's a big move to make it to non-commoditize it, and we're actually going to talk about that at a later episode of Front Runner. But for now, we understand that everybody sells insurance, but you truly can be the one that sells hope, and
That's right.
getting people connected to something bigger than themselves. And so when I end episodes saying live for something bigger, work for something bigger, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when one day the money, the policies, all the stuff that you've gotten over your lifetime. Here's my promise: all that stuff fades away. You can't take any of that stuff with the grave. Every one of us is the exact same when we go into that grave, right? We are nothing but skin and bones. That is it. And soon enough, there will be no skin. All right. We're all the exact same. What makes us different? What makes us different is we decided to step up in the time that I believe God's given us to do something to increase peace across the world, right? If you're in the Jewish community, shalom, right? Whatever that is for you, even if you're not religious, that doesn't matter, right? Even if you're not religious and you don't, faith is not important to you, people should still be important. I think the world a better place should still be important, and so we're here to help you to do that. So, hey, Kevin, I've kept you a long time. I'm super grateful for your time, brother. Hey, some final words. Any other thing you want to say to our audience about fighting for freedom in their town, understanding the problem, or engaging with the Set Free movement? Anything else you want to finish up with?
Well, I think we can look at the issue of human trafficking, but we need to also realize that that's a symptom of the much deeper problem that relationships are broken and communities are broken. And as business leaders in your community, you've got an opportunity. Everybody listening to this call has an opportunity to come in, to enter into this conversation in your community, and to challenge value systems that are leading to that brokenness, and offer hope. And I was just thinking, what is it? State Farm that says, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Yep.
Like, it's not State Farm is here, give us your money, we'll protect you. It's like a good neighbor. Like we want, all I'm basically saying is, if we can all be good neighbors and look out for the welfare of others and be informed and not oppress others through the products that we buy and use, and we can use our time and our talents, our influence and our money for good, we're a good neighbor. And that's only going to benefit everybody in the long run.
That's right.
And I guess, just my final comment is I'm sincerely offering to help you. So, to come alongside of you, to walk with you. So, so contact me, reach out.
Yeah. And I think that's where to start. If you're sitting there listening, asking, where do I start? I think that's where you start. I think you can start by doing a couple things. Number one, you can visit setfreemovement.com. They have amazing articles, all kinds of things that you can understand more about the organization, how other businesses and people are fighting for freedom, right? So that's number one, but don't stop there. Second is, I think you can connect with Kevin at setfreemovement.org, or you can email me, Adam at imafrontrunner.com.
Sure.
I'll get you connected to Kevin, and maybe figure out, how do you have a conversation with Kevin or one of his team members across the country about how your agency can start to fight for freedom right where you're at. I think that's where you start.
Mm-hmm.
And then let it go on from there. Don't overthink it. Don't lose any sleep, but just commit to doing something. And I think a good first step is to reach out to my friends here at the Set Free Movement. And from there, you can conduct your business in the direction of freedom. Kevin, thanks again. for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll be talking soon. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right. Hey, that's going to be a wrap for episode number 27 of To the Front. I was joined by my friend Kevin Austin, and I got to tell you, I've known Kevin for a lot of years. He and his team are the real deal. They really are making an impact for freedom across the world, across the United States. I wish, in fact, if you get on a call with him, I'm sure he'll tell you about all kinds of things that they are doing, not just to raise awareness, but to actually put boots on the ground. And your insurance agency can be a part of it. So I want to end this episode like I end every other one. Go operate your agency, your business, for something more than money, something that will outlive and outlast you. And I believe fighting for freedom is a great place to start in your town. If you really want to go to the front, right? It can't just be a growing business. It's got to be a better community because you are part of it. And that's how you can lead your business in the direction of freedom. So until next time, for episode number 27, signing off. Can't wait till episode number 28. Take care. Be blessed. Lead with courage.